Hi, I'm Joanne Price from the Autoimmune Group in Central Jersey, which is a face-to-face support group for anyone with autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, or fibromyalgia. This is our third installment of what I'm referring to as the modalities that we have the ability to change. Stick that up in there for you. And today we're going to be talking about socialization. We've already covered sleep and creativity, so this is number 3. And what we were actually saying about that was that there are eight topics in the wheel, and if each offers us about a 5% increase in our wellness, then if you cover all 8 of the topics in the wheel, then you can hopefully gain up to a 40% improvement in your wellness. Obviously, the larger portion is your treatment plan with your doctor and what medications that you're on, and kind of just where you are in that process of illness. So I just want to cover socialization, which I think is really still very important even though we're sick, and it's probably next to creativity, it's the next thing to go when you're sick, right? I mean, if you're so sick that you're just on the couch or in bed, what are the chances that you're going out for coffee with the girls? It's not going to happen, right? Well, it really should be. Even though you're horribly sick, what I want you to think of is how can you manage to squeeze in just once every week, not every day, but I want you to look at your calendar, and maybe you have to build in a day before and a day after socialization, which is how I started building myself and my strength back up. And then you need to, the first step I think really for me is you need to know who is safe in your life as a friend and who is healthy. A safe and healthy friend is not going to make little underhanded, snide remarks about your illness or about your inability to work. They are going to be people that truly feel bad for you, and they know the type A personality that you once were, plowing through work and school and having a family and doing it all at a relentless pace, and then finally landing up where you are today. So those are your safe people. And how do we know who is not a safe and healthy person for you? I think it kind of shows itself at bedtime for me. When I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about the day, good experiences tend to just leave me feeling good, and I let it go. Or maybe I'll even be chuckling over something that somebody said, or something that happened while we were together. An unhealthy relationship for me shows up right as I'm trying to fall asleep, and I can't let it go. And all of a sudden, something that they said or something that I said in response to something that they said, which triggered me, caused me to say something that I'm looking back at and I'm thinking, ugh, I can't believe I said that, or why did I let them get to me, or why do I let them get to me, or whatever it is. But that's my tip-off that something is not right with that relationship. And I don't mean just one time. I mean, on a regular basis, consistently, every time that you get together with this person, there's just something unsettling that doesn't feel right, inside. So the next thing that you need to do is figure out what need that you want met, and who are you going to go to for that need to be met. Because if you're like me, I have a lot of different friends, but it's like each friend sort of has their own role to play in who I'm going to call in a certain situation. So to make that more clear, I have one friend who's always hysterical, always gets me to laugh, no matter how low I feel, no matter how sick I feel. I know she's going to make me laugh, but it may not happen, in the first 2 or 5 minutes of the conversation, but by the end, I'm laughing, and I'm in a completely different space, and I think that's super important. That person is super important to me. I have a different friend who, no matter what I have to say, As long as it is a time that she can talk, she's the best listener, and she's so non-judgmental, and she'll just listen and hear you and support, till the cows come home. And that's great, because sometimes you just really don't want somebody's advice on how to fix things. You just really want to be heard. Then I have another friend who's super grounded, gives the best advice. She's a very godly woman, and she can help see things from a perspective that quite often I need reminding of, because it can get lost in the shuffle. Then I have other friends that, that are just plain joys to be around. And then there's one more very dear friend who kind of, even though she doesn't live nearby, she's a kind of an everything friend, and no matter what I need, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. Very rare that I would walk away from this person without feeling fulfilled. And I'm not going to be ruminating as I fall asleep. She's funny. We can talk deeply. We can have very deep, meaningful conversations, which also, by the way, fall by the wayside when you're very sick. I mean, who has the energy to be existential? You know what I mean? So, but it's important. I mean, if you let these pieces of your soul wither up and die, yes, you're going to feel sicker. And when you bring them back into focus and pay attention to these important friendships and the important socialization component to your life. I mean, we're social people. We're not meant to be tucked away in a cave with the lights off, with the TV going, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. That's a recipe for depression, people. Don't let that happen to you. Be proactive. Figure out who are your good and healthy people. Look at your calendar. Carve out some time. And then pick an activity that you're able to do. And if it's just a phone call, then it's just a phone call. And set the parameters. If this is a good and healthy person for you, they're going to get it. They're going to understand. Tell them, my really good hours to talk today are going to be from like 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening. What works for you? And maybe then cap it off and say, I know we get carried away, but after about 30 minutes, I'm going to start to fade, and I'll let you know when that happens. And a good friend is going to say, oh, yeah. I'm happy to have whatever time with you. I treasure that time, and you let me know. And then maybe they'll even check in with you if they're super nice, and they'll say, 20 minutes in, they'll be like, how you doing? Are you okay? Do you want to keep talking, or do you want to hang up? And that's the person that no matter how sick you feel comforted and supported by them, because they're showing you that they really get it by their words and their actions. So if you can only go out for coffee or lunch, you're sitting in a booth somewhere indoors where the climate is controlled, and coffee is a shorter amount of time, lunch is a little bit longer, but dinner is a little longer than that. So, pick what you're able to do. If you can't go strolling the mall, you have to be honest and say, I would love to go shopping with you more than anything in the whole world, but right now that's not going to work for me. And by the way, that phrase, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me, that's a good way to say no to almost anything. Because how can people take offense to, I would really love to, but that's just not going to work for me? And you don't have to go into 100 reasons why, because it's not really anybody's business, especially if they're a toxic person and they're not going to really get your reasoning anyway. But I digress. So you're going to let go of anybody that's toxic. We don't need them in our lives. We don't need toxic energy or toxic people. It doesn't mean you need to have a knockdown, drag out, and remove this person forcibly from your life. No. But you don't need to answer every phone call. Only pick up for that person if you have the energy. Otherwise, they leave a message and you call them back when you do have the energy. And if the energy just never surfaces, then maybe they finally get the hint. And if they want to ask the question, they can ask it to the answering machine. And, if somebody is really toxic to you, don't feel like you owe them an explanation. They'll eventually get the hint. And, if they really want to look into it from there, you'll get a message or whatever from them. And, maybe you can choose to respond by email or something that's going to work for you, where that confrontation is not face-to-face, which is extremely toxic for the body and taxing, I think is really what I was trying to say. And I flubbed it up. But anyway, so I want you to carve out at least one small block of time every week for socializing. That doesn't mean any kind of work. I love charity work, but we're going to talk about that under spirituality. But that's not for this. This is just having fun and being silly, or talking deep, or opening up, just being with a friend. And some other tips, because obviously for them, being our friend is difficult for them, and I think we need to honor that. And you can do that in many ways. You can make sure that you thank them for their flexibility, for their support, for their love, for their guidance, for their time. Let them know how much you appreciate them making time for you, because it's a two-way street. You want to be a good friend as well as to have a good friend. And another way that you can make somebody feel good about being with you is, obviously we have, a boatload of crap going on, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, blah, blah, blah. But that can get droning because, it's the same crap, different week, different month, different year for some of us. But if you get on the phone or meet up with somebody for coffee or whatever, the first thing that I want you to think about doing is asking them, how are you? And, they're going to know you're sick, and they're going to say, no, you're sick. Tell me how you're feeling. Bring it back to them. Yeah, we know I'm sick. How are you doing? Tell me, how are you? Because I want to hear about you. My life is boring. Share with me how you are doing. And then give them the floor. And then, typical good friends are going to then lobby the conversation back your way. And, even if you talk for 45 minutes and the visit was only supposed to be 1 hour, if you gave them the first 5 or 7 minutes, I want you to remember, though, to watch the time, and at the very end, try bringing it back around to them again and say, time is running short. I just want to see if you have anything new coming up, or, how are the kids or the hubby or what, find something that you can ask, not a yes or no question, but an open-ended that lets them take the last bit of the conversation time, because it does get mundane if it gets mundane for us to talk about how crappy we feel and what latest treatment did or didn't work, and the cost of all of it, and the running around to all the doctors. They want to be kept in the loop, but truth be told, they're probably being polite some of the time. So if their first experience and the last experience are what, the takeaway, that they can leave feeling good that those portions of the conversation. And like I said, out of 60 minutes, even if you had a lot going on, some horrible test or whatever, if they go home and they had those 2 bits on either end, they're not going to remember that you monopolized. They're going to know that you talked and shared, but they're also going to feel heard. And trust me when I tell you, if they're not feeling heard, how long are they going to hang out in your life? This is not easy. It's not easy for anybody. Obviously, it's not easy for you, but it's not easy for the people who love us. And when it becomes icky or painful all the time or whatever, people avoid the situation. At one point, what worked well for me, and it also goes along with the positivity conversation that we shared a couple of recordings back, is that I actually realized that every friend I got on the phone, I was sharing the same miserable story with. So imagine in a week, if 4 or 5 people are catching up with you, how many times you're repeating, and your body, the mind is very obedient. It follows along with the narrative that you're assigning it. So if all you're talking about is illness, sick, treatment, nothing works, they're sick of it, but you get sick of it even more. So I put up my hand and I said, look, guys, I'm not going to talk about my illness. And what happened was I actually stopped talking about my illness, and a couple of my friends stepped up and said, hey, you must be feeling better because you're not talking about it. And I said, well, in all honesty, things are the same, but I promise that from going forward, I don't really want to talk about it because I know you don't want to hear about it. If anything's this, if it's just status quo, it's status quo. But I promise to tell you if I'm doing better, and I promise to tell you if I'm doing worse. And obviously, if there's some huge test or treatment change, of course I'll share that. But enough of the, I had to sleep 13 hours, or I can't get down the stairs, I have to go one at a time like an old lady, yeah. You know what I mean, like, people love you, and hopefully we love ourselves, but, if the narrative can become more about, I was actually able to do blah, blah, blah today. I mean, I actually did 2 loads of laundry and the dishes, and, like, make a big deal out of the small things, and then maybe tomorrow there's one extra small thing. Today I did 2 loads of laundry and the dishes, and I cooked dinner. I couldn't believe it. That was so awesome. And, the tail end of that might be, you were in bed at 8 p.m. sleeping, but, give honor and celebrate the small accomplishments, even out loud to other people. And I found when I dialed back the negativity, even though it was truth, for real, it was true. But I wanted to give that less airtime, if that makes sense, and give the positive stuff more airtime. And the friendships blossomed back into fullness as well from that strategy. So that's why it was important for me to share that with you, because I think we all want to leave people feeling better for having spoken to us or met with us. I think that's the goal, and then that brings them back for more. And I just want to remind you to check back in a week, and we'll have the next installment, which, let me see if I can pick one out of the crowd here. Maybe we'll do stress levels. Some of it's common sense stuff, but it's my personal take on it. So you'll get my experience of having been so sick, and then clawing my way back to working a few hours each week and doing so many things that I actually am loving, socializing and being active in my church and singing some more and singing some more. So I was there, and I'm hopefully your guide to pull you forward and bring you to a better level of wellness. Check us out on the web, www.autoimmunegroup.com, and hope you can show up to a meeting soon. Unfortunately, this Saturday's meeting, May 13th, canceled for a nor'easter. It's Mother's Day weekend anyway, so go enjoy it. Just stay dry. And then the next meeting is June 10th, and we're hoping that we might be able to get the guest speaker rescheduled. And we were going to have pet therapy come in, so doggies, yay! All right. Until then, be well, my friends, and I'll talk to you soon.